2024 is what is considered to be the year of leaks, both in animation and film combined. For the most part, these leaks are either done as an enactment of revenge due to poor business practices, or for otherwise completely unknown reasons. Pilots, pitch bibles, and even fully finished movies would be removed from their confidential status and showcased to the public during this time. One lesser-known gigaleak on Twitter/X contained concept art, trashed recordings, and finally, storyboards regarding My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. It was later removed in less than a day, and it has been speculated that this is due to higher-ups catching the leaker in the act. The Megalink's contents were muddled with explicit material involving the show's characters and situations better fit for a late-night cartoon. But the most notable part of everything given was the storyboard-jam subfolder. 70 strips of Devil May Mare were revealed. And the only other file next to the multiple snapshots was a text document reading, "What boredom leads to." The jam featured the Cutie Mark Crusaders and began in their treehouse setting. Apple Bloom paces around the room, eyes locked on her hooves as she demands the other two members, Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo, for fast solutions to receive a Cutie Mark. Terrible, stupid ideas are tossed around, such as going spelunking for some reward relating to bravery, or starting a death metal band knowing how bad they are with music. Apple Bloom eventually settles with running an apple juice stand. The other two members groan in exasperation, commenting about how basic the idea is, before Apple Bloom remarks with, "The creators of this stupid comic are just as basic as I am, so quit your whining." A montage plays of the Crusaders painstakingly trying to crunch apples into a liquid fine enough to drink, only for them to continuously spit at and blame each other for having methods that were too dirty. Lockpicking and sneaking some bits out of the Apple family vault first, Apple Bloom decides to make her way into Ponyville in search of better ingredients. She ends up getting into a conversation with another stallion for advice, and it's overheard by an androgynous, shadowy pony peeking from between two buildings. Their eyes glint a hue of yellow, and they mischievously rub their hooves together. Once Apple Bloom is forcefully pulled into the passageway, the dark figure informs her that they've got exactly what she needs. And they raise their hoof into view, holding a small plastic bag full of tablets with differentiating symbols on each one. Apple Bloom is hesitant at first, but once she's reassured that it could make her a fortune, She instantly takes the offer and trots home. 2 frames completely colored in black marker follow. Apple Bloom drops a tab into 2 paper cups filled with her homemade drink, causing them to furiously bubble up, and offers to have Scootaloo as the first taste tester. Quietly grumbling through gritted teeth, Scootaloo hisses that it better not taste like hoof dirt, before begrudgingly downing half of the beverage. Her eyes shoot open, pupils abnormally wide, and her front hooves fall to her sides. A wide, cheesy, Ren and Stimpy-like grin plasters over her face at a crawling pace. Sweetie Belle is surprised at the reaction, and after downing one of the cups out of curiosity, she winds up falling into a euphoric state, snorting and rolling around in the grass like a lunatic. At oddly perfect timing, a group of tourists stop by, noticing the ordeal and asking what's going on. Scootaloo is absolutely stoned and can hardly say anything other than, "That's some good squeeze," prompting one of them to try a sip. Soon enough, all of the travelers are intoxicated out of their mind, singing, dancing, and chucking money at Apple Bloom. A radiant, starry-eyed smile rises upon Apple Bloom's face, believing that this will be the way her quest for a cutie mark ends. 3 days of buying and selling pass. Applejack offers some advice on consumerism to her little sister while sick in bed, unaware of what the secret ingredient is. Scootaloo and Sweetie Belle haven't been seen by Apple Bloom since her first day of running that juice stand. She had last spotted them mumbling about a shiny thing before immediately crawling into the many acres of apple trees nearby. But she shrugged it off, thinking that they simply flaked out on crushing more apples and were trying to come up with an excuse to leave. Each day, a good fourth of Ponyville's population falls into a wasted stupor, writhing in dog piles.
Spike, Twilight's apprentice, trudges through Ponyville, lost out of his mind and trying to find someone who isn't infected with the disease, as he calls it. He happens to come across Rarity, sobbing over Sweetie Belle not having arrived home in days. The young dragon is shocked by this and offers to bring this problem to Twilight for her to figure out, further adding in a grumpy tone that he hopes she cares enough to wake up. The door to Twilight's library slams open hard enough to shake the entire tree, and Spike calls out for her, each time louder than the last. After receiving no response, he storms upstairs and forcefully tries to shake her awake, only for her head to turn, eyes meeting his. Her eyes have been reduced to hypnotic swirls. She is sweating buckets from head to hoof, and a wide, flustered smirk crept over her cheek. Upon being asked if she was alright, Twilight simply cackled a bunch of nonsense, such as being able to hear color and see sound waves. Spike, enraged at the fact that she has been infected too, lets out a yell, causing a powerful line of flame to shoot out of his mouth. This sight to Twilight is like jingling keys in front of a toddler's face, as she spontaneously sits up, slowly applauding, still in her drunken state and revealing the stain of urine on her sheets. A thermos rolls out of her bed and onto the floor with a loud thunk, catching Spike's attention. His eyes narrow and he raises a brow, possibly getting a clue as to what caused her to stay in bed for so long today. Upon looking inside, he sees about 1/3 of the tumbler containing a transparent orange-ish liquid with a single chalky tablet inside, drained of its color. When asked about what she was drinking, Twilight responds with another stupid remark. "Oh, just some aid I got from Spike and Rarity have a confused, albeit frantic discussion outside over what was just discovered, before Celestia gently lands in front of them with a disturbed demeanor. With a stutter, she talks in really fast speed about how she stepped onto her balcony to scan over Center Lot and be able to point the guards in their positions once they arrived. But she saw that almost every single pony off in Ponyville was on the ground. Her expression was that of trying to hold back tears until realizing that most of the town was still alive, just wallowing. Spike asks, "What do you mean by almost every pony?" The Sun Princess regains her composure and answers, telling him that the only other pony that looked seemingly normal from her view was a filly. That filly being Apple Bloom, selling apple cider. At that moment, Spike's eyes turned bloodshot from the realization of how this whole phenomenon was caused. The only sounds filling the air aside from Celestia continuously asking where Twilight was, were the moaning and groaning of other ponies. Spike slowly picks up the thermos he carried outside off of the gravel and twists it open, before pushing it up close to Tia's face. The tap inside was barely crumbled. "She has been just like them all day," Spike fearfully muttered. All three of them fell silent, and a shot of Ponyville's exterior is shown, with a giant speech bubble above, filled with screams.
Meanwhile, Apple Bloom was sitting in her stand, looking off into the distance, with only 1/10 of her pitcher left. She at first wonders what that noise could have possibly been, only for her to shake her head and pass it off as just some pony hating her drink. Suddenly, a hoof taps her shoulder, startling her. Applejack, compared to every pony outside of Sweet Apple Acres, is actually happy. She repeatedly thanks Apple Bloom for her effort in helping with the family business, while most of the family was stricken with fruit pox over the weekend. States that her cider was one of the second biggest successes they've made in a while, and she's willing to take over for her now that she's feeling better. Apple Bloom declines, informing her unaware big sister that it's been very slow lately, and she's getting ready to close up anyway. "Dinner's on the counter, Sugar Cube." Applejack grins, ruffling the filly's mane, before ambling back to the barn, leaving her all alone outside under the scorching sun. It's so hot outside that it gets Apple Bloom red in the face with sweat. She eyes upon her pitcher, with enough left to fill one small cup of her own, realizing that she hasn't tried even one droplet of her special cider just yet. Hesitation ensues for a few panels, possibly done as a joke by the storyboarders. Apple Bloom finally snaps out of it and tilts the pitcher back, gulping down the rest of her handiwork. Her pupils dilate wide enough to rival saucers, and the last thing she sees before her vision slides upward into total darkness is 3 multicolored blobs calling out her name, racing toward her from across the gravel road. The setting changes entirely, from Sweet Apple Acres to a blurred maze of patterned carpets and brick walls. Echoing from far away is what seems to be nightclub music. Apple Bloom fearfully wanders through the labyrinth, calling out for some pony, any pony to give her directions, or at least tell her where the hell she's at right now. The only responses she gets before continuing her search are more muffled nightclub beats and the loud coughing fit of a mare next to her, lying on her side. She falls completely silent and stiff right there. Following the noises, they grow louder and louder, until Apple Bloom finally reaches the dead center of the maze she's been trudging through. Velvet curtains, with practically every color in the rainbow blinking from between and underneath. The same moans and groans heard from within Ponyville rang about. Walking inside was a sight that could only be seen to be believed. The blur of the headlights was virtually blinding, but within the slight haze sat a red light district, filled to the brim with stallions, mares, and these strange figures uncomfortably caressing them. Each figure bore jewel-encrusted belly dancer outfits and name tags labeled Stacy, number 1, 2, 3, etc. All topped with a thin, cylindrical slab for a head. Their faces ranged from smileys to umbrellas, and sometimes even familiar carvings of other ponies. Apple Bloom whispered swears below her breath as she scanned the area, looking for someone she can get an answer from. That is, until she stumbles upon a sight deep in a corner of the area, behind everyone. It was rather difficult to make out for the first few seconds from all of the lights, but upon realizing what sat there, piled up, her heart sank. 2 barely recognizable fillies, lightly foaming from the mouths, with writing scrawled on the wall, pointing down to them. No children allowed. It read in dusty, chalky letters.
Apple Bloom felt as though she had lost her mind and this was simply all a dream. Rapidly stumbling backwards and shaking her head, she accidentally bumps into something, causing her to shriek so loud that it shuts off all of the music, leaving only the sound of ponies experiencing their fake affection. Turning around and looking up, she was met with Stacy, displaying a crown symbol for her face. A slow, painful, drawn-out scene drags on for at least 4 strips, involving the poor filly trying to convince the supposed boss of the establishment to show her a way out, that she doesn't want to be here anymore, only for each reply she gets to be large, scratchy M's with small, scarcely visible writings behind the speech blurbs, representing what this being is truly saying. Some along the lines of, "No mare, moron," and "not big enough for our liking." In time, the living ecstasy monster leans down to Apple Bloom's level and spits one last mumble in her face. A mumble that was slow and steady enough for her to understand. "I will show you what regret looks like." Just then, the creature attempted to reach out and touch Apple Bloom's mane, its fingers twitching. Freaking out at the sudden move, she screams at the thing to keep its worms away from her, before standing on her back hooves, reeling one back, and sucker punching the thing in its face. Almost as if it were made of menthol, a fourth of its face crumbled away and piled onto the floor. It shivered, then hollered, hands covering its eyes like a sobbing damsel. The occurrence was enough to prompt every other Stacy to stand up, eyes on Apple Bloom, beginning to speedwalk in her direction.
Falling a few seconds short on finding a way to the exit, she was cornered next to the 2 filly corpses with no other way to go. One hand tightly yanked onto her mane, another stuck its fingers in her mouth, then another hand scratched at her stomach. Even if a hand was swatted away or broken, another one cropped up. It was like throwing stones at a tornado. More and more of them would only be chucked back. Soon enough, Apple Bloom's entire body was covered in tightly gripping, seizing hands, some pulling her apart in a torture rack position. The atmosphere darkened further, the more she was smothered by these monsters. Then, as if it had never been happening in the first place, the final strip cuts to a completely different setting. Apple Bloom's open-mouthed, lifeless body lay in the throne of Canterlot Castle, next to a standing Celestia, evidently arguing with someone and face cut off by the top of the border. Flies buzzed. Small smudges in replacement of talking lines plagued the background. And the filly's flank was no longer empty. A smiley took its place. Geez, what's the matter? You can't sleep? Good. Stay tuned, pal. You're watching LafawndaPasta.